What if I told you that there are steps you can take to prevent the number one cause of death in America today? Hello, everyone. I'm Another View producer, Lisa Godley, sitting in for Barbara Ham-Lee. Today on Another View, we're talking about stress-induced heart disease and its effect on the Black community. Join me, along with Another View on Health co-host, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby, and our guest, Dr. Jonathan Smith, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and Ulysses Robinson, a heart disease survivor. During the next hour, we will explore everything from risk factors to prevention. And of course, we'll be taking your calls. It's Another View on Health, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Another View producer, Lisa Godley, filling in for Barbara Ham-Lee. For those of you who don't know, Barbara is chair of the Board of Commissioners for Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing. And today she's serving as MC for the retirement celebration for NRHA's CEO, Cheryl Montgomery. She'll be back next week. And Barbara, as always, I'll do my best to make you proud. High blood pressure, obesity, and diabetes, some of the most common conditions that increase the risk of heart disease. But there's another, stress. And today on Another View, we'll be talking about the role stress plays when it comes to causing permanent damage to the heart. Heart disease is the number one killer for all Americans. And according to the American Heart and Stroke Associations, when it comes to African Americans, 45% of Black men and 49% of Black women already have cardiovascular disease. Here at Another View, we want to help stem the tide of heart disease. So today we have some very special guests joining us in the studio to help get the word out. Joining me is Ulysses Robinson, a survivor of heart disease. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, he's here to share his personal story. And thank you so much for being here. Also with us today, Dr. Jonathan Smith, PhD and CEO of the Wellness Collaborative. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And my co-host for today and buddy, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. Keith, this is your area of expertise, so I'm going to lean heavily on you today. And I'm going to start with why are the numbers so high with African Americans with heart disease?
The bottom line becomes this lifestyle and the disease processes, which are a result of the lifestyle. When you talk about high blood pressure, you talk about diabetes, high cholesterol levels. Everything with heart disease tends to tie in and of itself, meaning if you have hypertension, characteristically there's going to be issues with diet. Sodium content in the food, and typically the caliber or type of foods we eat are going to be high in cholesterol, high in fat, high in sugars, which leads to obesity, which leads to diabetes, and the diabetes leads to high cholesterol levels, and all that in combination can lead to cardiovascular disease because of atherosclerotic processes that stimulate as a result of all that. So you talk about a lifestyle issue. If we're not aware of the lifestyle causing an issue, it's going to continue. So when he talks about education of our people, unfortunately, so we find that sometimes is lacking, and then these other processes come into play. So when you talk about then add stress on that, which we'll get to as we go through the show, that's just like the icing on the cake that can lead to heart disease. So everything really bounces off of the other thing. So that's really what it boils down to. Lifestyle is like the first thing. It's genetics play a factor, don't misunderstand. And all these other issues, they all play factors. It's just when you look at the core problem is always lifestyle. And if you look at what we eat, McDonald's, some of these other fast food places we go to, and a lot of people, they say I can go and get a whole meal for $1. It's going to be, double cheeseburger, fries, and a drink. Well, you think about how much fat, how much sugar, how much, carbohydrate and sodium is in that, and it's $1. So I say, okay, I spend $20 to buy something healthy, or I can spend $1 and get this. I mean, the math is going to add up real quick where people are going to turn. So when you're already on a limited budget, and a lot of people, we're all on limited budgets, but when you talk about, you say, okay, I need to feed, X number of people, and how can I make sure I do this efficiently? Unfortunately, so the unhealthy things are typically the easiest and cheapest to get.
Wow. Okay. All righty. Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
talk to me about your story when you were diagnosed and how this has impacted your life.
Well, it started in 1998 from a normal physical with my general physician, and he did ECG, and he said I had an irregular heartbeat. So he prescribed for me to go to a cardiologist, first time in my life, and he said his diagnosis was that I had a weak heart muscle. So he prescribed a medication along with my blood pressure medicine because I did have high blood pressure, and things were going along pretty smoothly. In 2012 is when everything started to explode. I was at home, and a serious man was over doing some work, some hardware there, and we were talking in conversation, and I passed out, scared him to death. So I regained consciousness, and they were saying, "Are you okay?" And for the rest of the day, things went on. So I called my cardiologist at the time was Dr. Mark Clark, and he had me to come in. And his associate, Dr. Benjamin Lee, he says, "Hey man, we got to put a defibrillator in you because if we don't, and then your heart stops again, you're going to be singing mega chapter in the sky," which means going to the hereafter and transition. So time went on. Didn't have any real serious issues until 2013. Everything fell apart. Dr. Clark retired as a cardiologist. So from January until May, when I was very blessed, thank God, to meet Dr. Newby, who took over his position. And from May until January of 2014, I was in and out of the hospital. The defibrillator was going off. I didn't blank out as much, but I was getting these shocks because the defibrillator is placed in you to shock your heart back into rhythm. And when my heart got out of rhythm, it would get to the point where the defibrillator had to pop in to keep me going. So I was all to pieces, to be frank with you, because, if I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Did you feel the shocks, or were they?
Yes,
Okay.
you could feel it. I mean, it's a shock. Let me
Okay.
tell you, it's something else. And the defibrillator does do its job. It does it very well. I'm here in front of you now, and blessed to be speaking to you all and on this panel. But January of 2014, I blanked out. I was driving my car, and I blanked out, and I was in Hampton, and I went across the median, and I hit a tree. Thankful there weren't anybody walking on the sidewalk. There weren't any of the cars coming down the street or anything like that. And the worst I had was a damaged car. I had no scratches, no broken bones, any of that. So I went to the hospital, and with the trauma of the body soreness, Dr. Newby and his staff, after many tries of medications to try to keep that heart in rhythm, they came with the solution that they wanted to prescribe was called an ablation. And that is when they go into your heart, and they stop the heart from beating, put you on a ventilator, and then they freeze the erratic beats, or the scars, as they call them. And it was 8-hour plus procedure. And since I've been through that, I've been very blessed, and I've been doing the prescribed things that Dr. Newby has me to do. I always thought I was a healthy eater. I haven't eaten any red meat since 1976.
Okay.
Back in college, we went through this phase of being vegetarians. Well, anyway, I moved to seafood and poultry. And maybe I was a little bit too heavy for my height and size. I would proclaim that. But overly, I thought I was a healthy person. I exercised during my days. I played baseball, and I was very active. But this is something that it was meant to be. A buddy of mine, I was saying, why me? He said, why not you?
Right.
He says, you could be a living testament as you come through this, and you will come through this. And I was very blessed to have a good support group along with a great cardiologist, and then as time went on, Dr. Smith, to deal with the mental aspect of my situation. Because you heard of post-war syndrome. Well, I had post-shock syndrome.
Wow, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was to the point where I had shocks in the shower, and I was scared to get in the shower. Dr. Smith can attest to that. When the water started to run, I get jittery.
Wow.
And Dr. Newby said, man, you got to calm down. You got to, have a quality of life.
Keith.
Yeah. Well, just to give you some background on this, when you talk about this defibrillator issue, just so everybody's clear, when people have weakened heart muscles, one of the biggest risks is what they call sudden death. And that's when you have irregular heartbeat called either ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation. And what that means is that, your normal heart conduction system starts in the right upper chamber and it sends a little impulse and it filters down to the bottom chamber. So it's a nice ordered contraction, and that's what keeps you moving and your heart beating well. Well, when you have this type of heart rhythm disturbance, you have a bunch of areas firing at the same time in the bottom chamber of the heart. Is very disorganized and erratic, and what it causes is the heart cannot beat effectively if you have so many areas firing at the same time. It cannot have an ordered contraction, so the blood pressure essentially goes to zero. Now, Brother Robinson was blessed enough to come to. A lot of people don't wake up and they die, so he was blessed in multiple ways. One is that after the first event he came to, because when you hear people dying at home, a lot of times it was this type of rhythm disturbance that caused that. So when you see like those shows, like the old shows like ER, these other things, and you see all the drama when somebody running there, somebody blacks out and they run in the room with the machine and they rub the pals together and say clear, and you saw this drama, they jump all off the table, which is just drama for TV. But it's similar in that the defibrillator is like that device, but it's internal. So when we implant those, we may make a little pocket underneath the skin. We access the vein underneath the collarbone and pass a wire with an X-ray camera to float that wire in the heart. So what that's doing is that wire is always looking at what the heart's doing. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because if you think about with a cardiac arrest, what happens? Okay, if somebody's with you, the first thing is they black out. People panic. Like what Brother Robinson said, that guy did with when they would come to the house. They don't recognize there's an issue, so then you have a time delay. So people got to get enough sense to say, okay, I need to do something, and they may do 911 while the patient's steadily dying, instead of immediately doing CPR. Well, so you have this time delay, and once you get to 6 to 7 minutes and there's no blood flow, you're going to start getting permanent brain damage. Uh-huh. So what the defibrillator is designed to do is to detect that heart rhythm disturbance, and it immediately charge up the capacitors and deliver that shock. It normally takes about 1.5 seconds to detect there's an issue. Then the charge comes to the capacitors, and then it relooks before it shocks. And it usually takes about 3 seconds to charge up the device. And then by second 4 or 5, it looks one more time to make sure they're still in it. And then it delivers a shock. So when you talk about that time delay, there is no real time delay. Now, the thing with Mr. Robinson was that he had a situation where he was getting multiple shots because his heart kept going into this rhythm disturbance.
Wow.
And it would be a spontaneous. And the reason why I know his stress level had to be high is you get no real warning. You may get a couple of seconds of warning before that shock hits. And the shock is like you could imagine somebody punching you in your chest as hard as they can. Because what happens with the shock delivery is all your muscles contract because that electrical charge is going through it. It goes from the device down that wire and then up the wire, transmitting through the heart to the devices up here in your chest. So essentially every muscle contracts.
Wow.
So if you can just imagine, that's why I say I used to pick with Brother Robinson all the time because he and I are fraternity brothers, so we do that with each other. But the bottom line is I understood why he felt the way he did, how much that stress of this issue. And then the problem is then the stress makes it worse because increased stress increases your risk of having more heart disturbances. But how do you break that cycle when you have that amount of stress? Is when you're thinking you can't even move. You say, that's why you say I'm scared to get in the shower, right? Because you can't predict. You don't know that although the shower wasn't an associated event with the device actually going off, but in his mind it was because that's when it happened.
So that was increasing his stress.
Yes.
So therefore, when he
so he gets more heart rhythm disturbances because what happens with those heart rhythm disturbances is that they're designed. When your stress level goes up, your adrenaline level goes up. When your adrenaline level goes up, it changes the way the heart beats. The electrical circuits are stimulated by adrenaline. So it almost makes your heart more prone to go into heart rhythm disturbances when you have higher adrenaline levels. And then when you have increased stress, increases higher adrenaline, increases this risk for having more arrhythmias, and then hence more shocks.
And you knew, because he said he was eating relatively well. He was, exercising, hadn't eaten red meat for a while. So you recommended him to Dr. Jonathan Smith.
Once I knew there was an issue, and I knew there was an issue, and I knew, Brother Robson was scared to do anything. And I felt that fear, and I knew I could never get him better until we got past that issue. And I understood that issue. So I called Dr. Smith and said, listen, I got a friend and a patient of mine who I need some help with. I said, I need him to deal with this situation. How do we help his coping skills deal with this problem? And that's when Dr. Smith came into play.
And Dr. Smith, what was the first thing you said to Mr. Robinson?
The first thing I said was, first off, I wanted to hear his story, and he's a very good reporter. And so I listened to his story, and I think I asked you around the middle of the first session, are you afraid to die?
Yeah, that was the first question.
Because we're talking about his beliefs and what do you think is going to happen? See, because if you're afraid, then your heart is going to speed up. And so we want to approach it like, I want to see your irrational beliefs about what's going on. I want to challenge those beliefs, and then I want to come up with some rational beliefs, right? And because heart conditions and stuff like that it's you treat it better with cognitive behavior type therapies. And so I wanted to check his thinking. Why are you so stressed out? Why are you afraid of the shower? You need to take a shower. You kind of smell a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. I didn't smell nothing. But why? What's going on? What do you see? Because he kind of associated being in the shower with a shock. Now it starts a pattern. Oh no, I feel a shock. Am I going to die? Am I going to do this? And then your heart races, the adrenaline starts to pumping, and then you get a shock. And then you get another one because you're terrified, and then it keeps coming. And so I want to talk about his beliefs. People say, well, what in the world are you talking about dying to? Well, what do you think about that? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to you? What's your beliefs about that? And then we got deeper into that, and then I started challenging some of his beliefs, right? And I kind of approached it through the eyes of my wife's grandfather, where he had a defibrillator. And he would get shocked around me, but he was able to reframe his thoughts. Instead of saying the shock hurts, he said it's doing its job and I'm alive. It's keeping me alive. You see, so he reframed it. And so even though he was still double over, he would still do this, he didn't stress out to the point where he kept having shocks. And so my whole approach was to help change the thought pattern, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and your thought pattern changed, I take it.
It took a while. It didn't happen ready, go. It took it started falling into place after the surgery, after February. And I always remember that anniversary date, February 5th. After that, the cerebral being came into play, whereas I understood what he just said is in me to keep me alive with the blessings. And with the two of them, things have seemed to have come to a great conclusion of better health, better mentality. So I just feel totally blessed that I had the both of them to come. And it was eerie how that happened. It was because I was at a convention, and one of my fraternity brothers had the same issue, and he said, you need to go see Dr. Newby. And I started smiling because when we had the same alma mater, and I knew him from the day, so everything worked out very, very well for me.
Okay, all righty. Want to take a call now. Want to speak to Marcus Fitch, who's he's the Director of Community and Multicultural, the Initiative for the American Heart Association. Marcus, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. How are you?
Great. What is the American Heart Association? What are they doing to help people with cardiovascular disease and to battle this issue?
Oh, well, we're doing quite a bit. Mostly, we're trying to increase awareness. Unfortunately, especially in the African American community, we are just not aware that this is our biggest hurdle, that so many of us have this disease. And we don't know the warning signs or how to prevent it. So we're doing a lot working with the churches and the community at large, really on the education piece, extremely focused on maintaining blood pressure, knowing your numbers, and as Dr. Newby mentioned earlier, really reducing your sodium intake to monitor those numbers. But also the stress. I know that's a big topic for today. We really encourage taking 20 to 30 minutes a day and not to check email, not to get on a long conversation with the phone, but actually just taking some time to yourself, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through a walk, and just really kind of unplugging and releasing some stress.
Wonderful. That's an excellent idea. We all have these electronic devices, and we're always on them, I think almost 24/7, many of us. Keith, he mentioned something when he was talking about the different things. I wanted to ask you about what was one of the things that you tell your patients when it comes to heart disease, some of the things that you tell them that you want them to do that they kind of ignore?
What it boils down to, I found, is changing the lifestyle. That's the hardest thing for people to do. When you talk about changing the eating habits, living habits, how do they deal with stressful situations? The unfortunate reality is that, when they're around me, they're around me for, 5 to 20 minutes, and then they're back into their usual environment. So they're there 99.999% of the time. They're around the stresses they have. Then they come with me, and I do allow the patients all the time to vent what's going on with them, and I do ask those questions because sometimes it's getting it out is therapeutic for them, at least to be able to say. And you would be surprised at the stuff I hear. What people go through. It's just insane. You get somebody. I had a lady who was having had multiple heart attacks. And it just really used to frustrate me because she was in her late 70s, early 80s, and she has kids with no jobs. With kids with no jobs. So everywhere she moves, here they come right along with her. They give nothing to the household income, but they eat up all the food. She had to do all this on her own. She had another job she was working to try to support her family. Now, this lady is about 80, but, she had like 3 kids. All of them live with her. Their kids all live with her. And one time she told me, she just said, listen, I'm out. She gave them the house. You have it. I'm gone. So, of course, because they had no job, they let the house default. So she moved into an apartment, and here they showed up there about 6 months later. And then when she came back the next time, because I saw her in between, and she was all happy because she was all de-stressed. She was feeling great. And then next thing I knew, the next time I saw her, she was stressed again. So I said, did they find you? And she said, yeah. And she was one of those kind of matriarchic people that, it's hard for her to just say, something, no, you can't stay here. Because, a lot of people, they get in those, with family, it's hard to do that with a lot of families. So that amount of stress impacted, significantly on our heart condition. So really, the biggest thing I found is trying to get people to change the lifestyle, to find ways of dealing with their stressful situations. That's firstly. Secondly is then the lifestyle change in terms of how they eat, what they eat, when they eat. Again, we're all under great deals of stress. I've had to make some changes myself with things to how late I would eat at night because I was a late night eater because I don't get home half the time till 9 to 11 o'clock. The other night I got home at 1. I was back in the hospital before 5. So this stuff does it does take its toll on you. So finding ways to incorporate your lifestyle, how to incorporate exercise in there, how to change what you eat. Those are the things that I have the hardest time trying to get people to do. It's easy to be lazy. They don't take any effort to do that, but it takes a lot of work and effort to get your life in order, exercise, diet, and those are the challenges that we have as cardiologists.
Gotcha. If you're just joining us, we're talking about African Americans and stress-induced heart disease. I'm Lisa Godley, filling in for Barbara Hamley. I'm joined by Ulysses Robinson, a survivor of heart disease, Dr. Jonathan Smith, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and cardiologist, Dr. Keith Newby. And if you have a story or information you'd like to share, please give us a call at 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Keith, you said something. You were talking about this lady, and when I was looking at the numbers, 45% of black men, but 49% of black women. Why are the women's numbers higher?
I think because of the recognition of the disease process. A lot of women, unfortunately, so when you look at textbook definition of of symptoms or what do people feel? This classic standard is chest discomfort, describes the tightness, squeezing, pressure, radiate down the left arm, shortness of breath, diaphoresis or sweatiness, nausea. That's the textbook thing you see. What happens is a lot of women don't present that way. A lot of women may present, one of the things that I've mentioned before we went on the air is women may just have jaw pain. Just feel like an ache in the jaw that comes as a result of doing certain types of activities. So in other words, say like if they're walking or they're doing walking a block and halfway through that block, their jaw starts to ache a little bit. That may be the only thing they feel. No shortness of breath, no nothing. I've had other women who say all they do is they feel excessive fatigue. I said, man, I just feel so worn out. I used to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Now I can't do much of anything now. That wouldn't necessarily make you think heart problems. What I have tried to do, I think in a former life, had I not been a doctor, I'd probably been an FBI agent. I joke with my wife about this all the time because I love crime dramas. I love trying to solve things. What you have to do is put the pieces of the puzzle together. So you look at that particular individual woman, you look at, for me, of course, I'm always thinking this way because of when you see a couple of people that present that way, it always triggers your mind to think along that line. So, I always look at the puzzle. What do the pieces fit? Do they, you look at what the risk factors are. I have a lady who's say 45 and she has high blood pressure, she's diabetic, she's high cholesterol, and she smokes. Of course, I'm going to be on top of that quick. Now, everybody doesn't have all these risk factors, but it kind of pushes you to say, okay, if you have this and you're having these symptoms, you have to take into consideration the possibility that they may have a heart problem. So really, the recognition is why the percentage is high, is lack of recognition early on. Because again, if back when I was in medical school, which it seems like many years ago, they used to teach us that women didn't have heart problems until they were postmenopausal. Right. So you talk about 60s, 70 years of age, and they used to say that when I was in school, they said women didn't have, because they said that you were premenopausal, that your estrogen protected your heart, and that you didn't have heart disease. So we never looked for it. And they said after menopause, that's when you started seeing it. Then they said that the men-women ratio was the same after menopause, and that's what we were taught. I remember that specifically from medical school. So then when you get into practice and you start saying, whoa, get a 32-year-old comes in with a heart attack, it kind of refutes all that, and then you start hearing, seeing more and more of this type of activity, and you say, oh, hold up, goes a whole against what we normally were taught to think would happen. So I think that is why things are going on now, because we didn't do all the preventative stuff with women like we did with men. Right. Because that wasn't necessary, we thought back then. So now we know differently, but it's got to catch up. It's like, how things sometimes in government will move slow. Right. Same thing in medicine. You have to, because it filters not just from us, but the patients have to buy into what you're telling them. And see, if they don't have any buy-in, they won't do it. Patients have to directly feel that things are going to affect them. They're not worried about Joe Blow down the street. They're worried about how it's going to affect them.
I want to ask you something. Yeah. I was reading some information. It was saying African Americans with heart disease who practice meditation regularly were 48% less likely to have a heart attack or stroke. What's your thought about
Yes, I think definitely. In my practice, I try to help my clients learn how to meditate. And meditation is wonderful. It's wonderful for lowering your stress level. And it's also a good tool to use when you're trying to get your life together, and when you're trying to, because I have a lot of single mothers with a lot of kids who come in and they're stressed out. And Dr. Newby mentioned some of their symptoms for heart disease, and I have a lot of them. I'm very tired. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, but I don't have time to go to the doctor because I have to do this. I have to do that. I think but if they can't do anything, they can meditate. You know what I'm saying? So I sit them down. I say, okay, let's practice meditation, and I find that sometimes it's so hard to get them to stop, even to meditate. Because I was raised by my grandmother all by herself, and my sister's a single mom. And I see a lot of single moms in our community. Our women are so strong, and they feel like that if they have, that's again irrational beliefs. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. My kids are not going to do this, and I'm not going to take care of myself. But I can get them to stop for 10 minutes to meditate. So meditation is a good beginning. I believe. Yeah.
Is that part of your routine?
Being a history major, I do reading.
Okay.
I read. And that relaxes me, enriches my mind, and so on. But I have never really tried what he stated about meditation. So my outlet is reading. And just maybe it is a mild form of meditation when you just get to yourself just to relax.
Yeah, Brother Robinson too type A to meditate. You got to hold him still long enough to do that. I tell you, I can tell you that right off the bat. I don't see that in the cards for him. The reading, and listen, probably I bet he's walking when he's reading. So,
Alrighty. Let's talk to James, who's calling from Norfolk. James, thank you for calling Another View.
Thank you. Shout out to Dr. Newby. Dr. Newby, this is James Holly.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Oh, doing good. Good.
I'd like to share a couple things with your listeners. My brother and I opened we can't say organic grocery store because not everything is organic, on North Holly about 4 years ago. And our focus is to bring locally produced items to the community. He actually sits on the board. This is a reference point for your listeners of Buy Fresh, Buy Local, Hampton Roads. And when you talk about changing your eating habits and your lifestyle habits, that's a good point of reference. People can go there. They can see where the local farms are. They can see where the local producers are as well. Another thing that just came up today, there's a YouTube documentary by the First Lady of the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's called Living in a Food Desert. And what this basically says is a lot of the farms are going away. A lot of the local grocery stores are going away. So the sources for, wholesome, sustainable foods just simply aren't there in some of these communities. And I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah, because that impacts significantly as it relates to, types of foods you eat. Because you talk about all the pesticides and the different things they do to try to, to increase growth, decrease the loss of food by, all the pesticide stuff they use. And then they try to make the foods bigger, so they put all this stuff in it that, it tends to not be more of a natural type, scenario. And unfortunately, so that does impact. One of the things that we find is trying to take the time to prepare your foods. Like right now, once I kind of started my personal lifestyle changes, now I do everything myself. I do my own lunch, my own dinner. I don't buy anything from the store anymore, at least not in terms of prepared foods. I just found that to do that has helped me tremendously as it relates to change.
There's so much salt in it too.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So, and they do that because as a restaurateur, I do know that what sells is grease, butter, and salt. And it's a shame to say it, but that's what sells. That's what people, they want the flavor of what they want, and when they see what is it that's going to make this taste good to them, grease, butter, and salt, and that's what sells, unfortunately. So I had somebody tell me one day, call me up and say, I'd love you to open up a healthy eating restaurant. I said, nobody would come. I said, I hear you, and I agree with you. But the bottom line is for every one person that wants to eat healthy. You're going to have 100 people that don't want to eat healthy. So when you talk about somebody says, "Oh, I would go every day," no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You say you would, but it's just like jazz restaurants. I wanted to have a jazz restaurant. I love jazz. One of my favorite musics, jazz, gospel, and classical. But the bottom line is, have you ever seen a jazz restaurant stay open? And you know why it doesn't? Because people don't support it. They say they're going to support it, but they don't. Same thing with healthy eating. They just don't see the value in it, because it costs them more, and that's the problem. So you say, can you sustain coming there, spending a little bit more to get something that's a little bit more healthy? Because you think about, look at any store and you look at like when you get some organic. How much does that cost versus the regular stuff?
It's much more expensive. And I'm going to tell you my frustration. My frustration is I like to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, but with my workflow and the job, I don't get to cook them as often. So a lot of times by the time I get back to them, I have to throw them out.
Yeah, I know.
And that gets frustrating too when you find yourself weekly just throwing things out. So I bought myself some little green boxes. I'll let you know how that works.
What I have
packing
found,
stuff. I'm hoping it'll last a little longer.
What I would always tell people, when I used to talk to Dr. Smith a lot, we commune in the evening because his office is around my office, and we'll talk about different things sometimes. And when we discuss like how to make changes, how do we make these changes? And that's where sometimes you just got to do it. So, I found now what I do on the weekends, I'll say, okay, like on Sundays, I cook for the week what I'm going to eat. And that's when I get those vegetables. I buy them and then I cook them then. Because I know if I let them wait, they're going to do exactly what you're running into. But I had to start if I do salad, my salad would go bad, if you let it sit for a few days. Yeah. So I had to say, every night when I get home, and I get everybody to bed, and then I get up. And then I fix my stuff for the next day. So I have all my containers and everything. So I have my system down now. But it took me 5 years before I started to develop it. But that's not easy to do. But that was through Dr. Smith, who just kind of kept, telling me you got to start thinking this process through. How do you want to make these changes? Once you start developing the changes you want to make in your life, then you have to just implement them. We talk about it all day long.
What is the most common advice you give patients?
When it comes to their physical health, mental health. Mm-hmm. I tend to just, I just say lighten up. A lot of times we take ourselves too seriously. And so I try to get you to lighten up about life. And because like with me, I like a cheeseburger every now and then. But if I don't have my wife, because I flock to McDonald's for that 3-layer, $2, triple cheeseburger every day if I could. But my wife, she kind of helps me, and I used to get really angry about it. Like, I'm a grown man. I can eat what I want to eat. But no, I can't. And so my wife got heavy, but it helped me to lighten up. She said, Jonathan, it doesn't matter if you go through all this education, be big Mr. PhD, and then you die. I said, oh. Yeah, that's true.
Shocked you into reality.
Yeah. And then I said, so I kind of at first I was mad, but then I had to lighten up about it, and I said, okay, yes, I don't want to die, and so I need to go eat right, and so I do that now. I purposely eat right, and I purposely run. I purposely go to the gym, and I tell my clients that too, because you know what, when your physical body is in shape, your mental body, your mental self is going to kind of fall in line. And then your spiritual body. See, we as African American people, we're spiritual beings, and we can't forget our spirits. And so I kind of try to address everything in my counseling sessions.
How is what is your routine?
My routine is through Dr. Newby. After I got out of the surgery and I started to heal, I got into a exercise program that was monitored with the Centera group. So what I do now is I still carry on that same routine as far as exercise.
Okay.
So on the eating side of it, like I said, I thought I ate right, but what I do now is I scrutinize when I go out to eat, how much sodium do you have in this particular
you ask.
entree?
Okay.
Yeah. And there are a few restaurants that say, okay, for example, grilled chicken, we'll grill your chicken without any seasoning or marinating. Wonderful. And they even know, Mr. Robinson, we know what you want. And I eat more at home because my dad used to say fast food is a fast way to the grave. And that's that's been with me for a long time. But I've never been really what you call a fast food fan. I picked my spots. So being a Southerner, I love fried chicken and a little fried fish. But now, not to lose it all, I may eat some fried chicken once a month.
Once a month.
Okay. Maybe some fried fish, but I do a lot of baking and broiling. And so that part of it was very hard for me to make a transition.
Okay.
Before you go to, I wanted to make a caveat because I don't know if Dr. Smith's wife is listening. But I wanted to throw this caveat. When he said she was heavy, he didn't mean in terms of weight.
No.
She's actually very thin.
Not weight.
And I want to make sure I told the listeners.
He meant heavy-handed.
Because I want to make sure everybody heard that because I don't want her getting him later because I don't want him to come with a black eye on Monday.
Heavy? We got the heavy-handed. I got the he meant heavy-handed.
Okay.
So let's go to Joe calling in from Hampton. Hi, Joe. Thank you for calling Another View.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I am what you call a foodie. I was at Norfolk State and captain of the football team for 3 out of 4 years and did everything. As soon as I finished playing football, I know I was an organic chemist. I know that I can't eat like I did. And the 3 things that we have that causes the most problem are, salt, sugar, and fat, as you were just saying. But the salt, sugar, and fat, I'm part owner of several restaurants in Merchant Square, and one of these days I'm going to come to The View because I'm doing a coaching historic center here, got a bunch of money into it, trying to deal with the black family, trying to show them that we must acquire middle-class values, and you have to be taught values to a large degree. That's all I have to say, but I hope we do something about our weight. But, I'm still the same as I weighed in college.
Well, that's wonderful. A lot of people can't say that, and I'm a Spartan. Our audio engineer is a Spartan, so behold.
Something else I want to just expand on is that you have to cultivate your family and their cooking habits because, African Americans, they love to put sugar and they like a lot of fried foods. And my family, I had to re-educate them, and they cook differently for me along with what they like to eat because, like he said, restaurants cook for taste, not for health.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I kind of wanted to whisper it to you. When you said they cook it without different things for you when you go in certain restaurants, I wanted to ask you, how does it taste?
Tastes fine to me because I want to stay vertical.
I got you. Okay. All right, let's go to Chuck in Virginia Beach. Chuck, thank you for calling Another View.
Vertical's good.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to let you guys know that in the past year we started a nonprofit in Virginia Beach called Virginia Beach Community Garden, and it's 4 core members, and we've just partnered with some local corporations and Princess Anne Centera Hospital to do a 1.5 acre garden. And the second build day is tomorrow, where we're asking any and everybody that wants to come out and learn about healthy growing of vegetables and any sustainable efforts to come out and join us.
Okay, Chuck, I have a question for you. Since you're growing vegetables, how do you sustain them? How do you keep once they've been picked and once people take them home? Do you advise them to cook them right away? What is your suggestion?
Well, we have a team of people that work with us, and we'll do different things like with the vegetables as far as canning, preparing, things like that. We have a permaculturist on the board as well. And she gives us a lot of great advice on all the sustainable ways to, grow, harvest, and maintain food. So, and this garden, I want to stress, it's really a community effort, and we want to really reach out to people in your community and in the whole Hampton Roads area to come out and just really support, like what you guys are trying to share information on, and really support each other in a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle.
Okay, and what is the location again of your community garden?
It's at the Princess Anne Centera Hospital on the corner of Dam Neck and Princess Anne Road.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Chuck, for calling and sharing. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for the show.
All righty. I have a question for you, gentlemen. Do any of you have your own gardens, or do you do the farmer's market kind of thing when it comes to fresh vegetables?
I've tried for about 4 years now. My thumb about brown as my shoe, but I can always seem to make out okay with like cucumbers. I think they're the easiest things to grow because they once they start, they just grow all over the place. I got a little garden thing in the back, so my daughter and I go out there. I try every year, but I was about to say I'm going to go to Chuck. I want to say if you can tell me why my thumb is always so brown, but I know it's a matter of just some people just have a knack for that. But I try every year.
Okay.
Well, I guess I call myself country city, so no, I don't do any gardening to produce any food. But locally, you have farmers that you can purchase food from, and when I go to the grocery stores, I'm very picky on what I get to eat and to buy. But I would prefer to go to on which I do as much as I can to the little markets, food stands. You know, you have the farmers local to distribute. I tell you, Virginia State University has a real good program up there. A lot of people know that agriculture is one of their big things, and they do a lot of things to project healthy foods, and they have ponds where they have farm-raised fish and so on like that. It was very interesting.
Know that was going on up
yeah,
there.
they have a good job. That was a very interesting program that they have up there.
Okay, Jonathan, how about you?
Well, we tend just to go to the grocery store, but my wife, since I'm from Tennessee, she says I'm the vegetable expert. So she makes me get. I don't know how that makes me the expert, but she says, "You country,
You're from Tennessee.
you go."
Yeah.
You're from Tennessee. You know vegetables.
Yeah, that's what she does. So I pick up.
Let's talk to Brian from Hampton. Brian, thank you for calling Another View.
Yes, hello. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I was calling just to kind of piggyback on what the gentleman was saying about healthy food usually just does not sell. I own a karate school for 15 years to the present in Hampton. And, of course, when I first opened up, it was my idea to provide, healthy snacks at my karate studio for my kids, teens, and adults. And at the time, we were in a strip mall right across from a Dollar General. And let me tell you, it was one of those things where after maybe 2 months of looking at it and dust settling on it, I had to take it home myself and eat it because everybody was going to the Dollar General getting the Snicker bars and the M&Ms, and it was just really kind of sad and disappointing to me. But that's just the nature of what people do.
Yeah, I think it really still goes back to that issue of what you're used to. See that, and I think if you really, like I say, if you you take somebody, you drop them in the middle of the desert, and you say, okay, you're gonna be out here for a month. And your only option is this healthy stuff, I guarantee you they'll eat it and they'll get used to it. And by the time you bring them out that desert, that's all they're going to want because that's all they were exposed to, And again, it's all about the culture that we have and trying to get people to say, when you have options, and those options, and you say, I can get something that's sweet and tastes good, it's good to the palate. And, it's one thing with that. But when you're used to something else, you will continue to follow that trend. And that's the problem is we haven't gotten to that stage where we can do that. We haven't, we say, okay, we close every fast food joint in America. We, take all the convenience stores away and all that stuff they sell in there. If you didn't have access to it, you wouldn't eat it, because you don't have access anymore. Then you start eating whatever's available, and that when the culture starts to change. It's all about cultural change.
It's a mindset change. Yeah. We changed our diet completely in our house, and now we have no sugar. Very little sugar, and now when I eat something with sugar, it's too sweet to me. So you'll get used to healthy.
It's kind of like going from whole milk to skim milk or 1%. After a while, you just keep weaning yourself off, and then when you go back to whole milk, it's like you feel like drinking cream or something.
Yeah, you just have to have somebody like Ms. Smith to beat folks down to keep eating like they're supposed to eat. So.
Okay. I want to take one more call before we go. We've got about 3 minutes left. I believe it's Shy calling from Virginia Beach.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Thank you for calling Another View.
Hi, can I go now?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Shai, and I'm calling from Virginia Beach, and I wanted to thank all of your guests on your show today. It's provided me with a lot of great information. But I was a single mother. My children are now grown and in college, but at the time, it was very difficult being on your own, trying to raise your children, eat healthy. Food is very expensive. So how is it that, what if you don't have health insurance? How do you get your health taken care of if you don't have the system or any type of program to help you? And I just really think that unless the psychologists and psychiatrists go out into the neighborhoods of privileged, how are they going to get the help that they need?
Well, I know a little bit about that, Shai. I know that there are now there are mobile farm markets that go into some of the communities now that bring fresh produce to people who otherwise to areas that would be considered food deserts, so that they can get information and they can get food that they otherwise might not be able to get. And as Chuck mentioned when he called earlier, people are starting to build these community gardens so that people who otherwise might not be able to get those fresh fruits and vegetables or afford them have that access. Now, we have probably about 2 minutes left, and I want to give each of you an opportunity to say something to our listeners before we go about something that you would want them to know about preventing heart disease or eliminating stress in their lives. And you want to start, Keith?
Let me start first because I want to defer a lot of my time to Dr. Smith with stress reduction. But I think if as far as the basic premise is always lifestyle change. You're reducing your fat content, reducing, more importantly, your sugar content, because that impacts on everything. A lot of people think the thing is to reduce the fat, but it's really the sugars that causes the majority of the problem. So if you could do that, that would make a significant improvement in your outcomes, and your weight would come down because you're cutting down on the carbs. One of the things I'm going to ask Dr. Smith to just comment quickly on is this type A personalities, because we get quite a bit of that. So what would you say to dealing your advice to people about that?
Well, with a type A personality, I go back to challenging your thought patterns. You have to change what you think and how you interact with the world. Now, I used to tell type A personalities, hey, slow down, stop working, but that would cause them to stress out more. So just kind of focus on what you can do, but also add to your list relaxation. Okay.
All righty, and we have about 30 seconds left. So, anything you want to say?
Do your visits for your doctor. To check how your health is going along, so he can prescribe the right avenues for you to travel down to have better health and do a better job in eating healthy as best as you possibly can.
Gentlemen, thank you so much today. I know that this information has gone out and people have gotten a lot from it. I know I have, and I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time to join us today. Now, if you'd like to know more about today's show, or if you'd like to hear it again, just log on to our website at anotherviewradio.org. If you haven't already, please sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of our upcoming shows. Thank you so much for spending your noonday with us today. For producer Morgan Chase, who so graciously agreed to fill in for me, audio engineer Victor Bowen, and Kamaria Mason, who answered our phones. I'm Lisa Godley. Barbara will be back next week when we'll get together again for Another View.